of a more limited organization referred to earlier in my submissions. I'm trying to comply with redactions. P1, for example, a self-confessed murderer whose recruitment by the prosecution will be examined elsewhere, was asked about the common criminal plan of his associates up to 2017. And this is what he had to say. Every time somebody was at fault against the government of Rodrigo Duterte, we didn't bother to send them to prison. We would just kill them. That's PHL OTP 0001 2584 at lines 248 to 250. Okay, and that was the audio which I just quoted, and here we have the transcript. PHL OTP 0001 2376 hyphen R02, lines 248 to 250. So, having given you that quote from P1, I would say that as far as this witness was concerned, the common plan was not a refined policy of cleaning up the streets, but rather a killing frenzy of the political opposition. Obviously, no such policy existed, and no such policy is alleged. P3, whose evidence relates to the presidential period, describes a similar orgy of killing without rhyme and without reason, but not drug addicts, nor alleged criminals, but rather that there was no mutually agreed common criminal plan. Madam President, there are 10 minutes to go. I will start with the concept of essential contribution, which is indeed the second limb that I want to talk about with respect to this mode of liability, which requires the prosecution to show objectively that Mr. Duterte himself made an essential contribution to the furtherance of this scheme of criminality, and what is more, that subjectively he was aware that he was making such a contribution. This is what us Latin-speaking lawyers, would call the sine qua non test. Or to put it another way, did these 49 murders, which the prosecution has identified, occur specifically because of Rodrigo Duterte's involvement? Or, to make the logic a whole lot simpler, would Rodrigo Duterte's withdrawal from this criminal scheme to target suspected criminals, as alleged by the prosecution, have led to the avoidance of these 78 deaths? Let us see where this test is set out in the Ali Khoshaib trial judgment. Paragraph 796. And I'm going to quote the essential part for the purpose of the essential contribution. The accused must make an essential contribution without which the commission of the offence would not be possible. To hold an accused liable as a co-perpetrator under Article 25(3)(a) of the statute, it has to be established inter alia that he or she had control over the crime by virtue of his or her essential contribution to it and the resulting power to frustrate its commission. Well, here, I would like to show you the statistics pertaining to the rate of killings since the former president has left power and the responsibility for law and order has passed into the hands of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. I rely on a report published by academics at the Third World Studies Center in the University of the Philippines in the context of what is called the Dahas Project. And trust me, the authors of this report, comprising weekly statistics on the first year of the Marcos administration from 2022 to 2023, are no great friends of the former president, Mr. Duterte. This report was even cited, I remember, in a Rappler article, but it's to be found on our list of evidence at PHL D36 0006 0001, pages 0006 to 0010. The report for the first year of the Marcos administration showed that out of 342 killings, 160 were at the hands of state agents. And the figures and the statistics just kept on rising, with the second year of the Marcos administration, 2023 to 2024, showing an increase in deaths at the hands of vigilantes, albeit a decrease in deaths at the hands of law enforcement officers, from 46.8% to 34%. Hardly a statistic to be proud of. So, with all the prosecutions, fancy bar charts, I'm pretty sure that if they were to recreate them for the period of 2 years after Duterte left power, they wouldn't have room left on their computer screen. The numbers would be so sky high. The conclusion is that there is no reason to believe that Duterte's disappearance from the political scene would have frustrated the ongoing incidents of murder at the hands of state agents or vigilantes. Clearly, I'm forced to ask myself whether anyone on the other side of this room has thought of investigating the Marcos regime and the related phenomenon and holding someone accountable. Why are my colleagues sitting to their right, the victims' representatives, not clamoring for accountability for those deaths? Or is it of no consequence now that Mr. Duterte is sitting in the ICC detention center? I've reached a natural break, Madam President, in my submission. With your permission, I would like to continue after lunch.
Judge Motok. Thank you very much, Mr. Kaufman. We will suspend the hearing now
Suspendido na po ang hearing
for 90
kasi
minutes
ng
to
halina.
resume at 2
Pero
p.m. Thank
by
you
way
very
of
much.
recap ay ang unang inaddress ni Kaufman ay yung kawalan ng elemento ng mens rea na tinarget ang mga biktima ng patayan di umano dahil sila ay mga inosenteng sibilyan. Yung sinasabi ni kasamang Maharlika na ginurgur dahil sila ay mga inosenteng sibilyan. At ang sinabi ni Kaufman na sinabi rin natin sa simula ng ating broadcast, kinakailangan patunayan nila na alam ni Tatay Digong bilang akusado na ang tinatarget ay mga inosenteng sibilyan at ang dahilan na sila ay tinatarget ay sila ay mga sibilyan. Wala pong ganyang ebidensya dahil ang lumalabas po ang mga naging biktima ng patayan ay mga tao na di umano ay may kinalaman sa pangangalakal nga ng droga o di naman kaya ay talagang nanlaban. No? So, basta mapakita na hindi talaga tinarget ang mga biktima dahil sila ay sibilyan, o kung hindi dahil sa mga ibang pamamaraan, yan po ay magiging dahilan para mawala yung pinaka-importanting elemento ng crime against humanity na targeting of civilian populations. No? Pangalawa po, matapos niyang ma-dispute yung kawalan nga ng mens rea, yung pinaka-importanting mental intention na tinatarget ang mga inosenteng civilian dahil sila ay inosenteng civilian, ay pinasinungalingan naman niya yung tinatawag na co-perpetrator. At dalawa yung bagay na pinupruebahan niya, nandun na siya sa pangalawang punto. Yung unang bagay ay walang illegal na sabwatan para pumatay dahil yung Operation Oplan na Tokang ay legal nga at ito nga ay sinang-ayunan pa ng ating Korte Suprema at hindi dineklarang ang unconstitutional. At pangalawa, walang ebidensya na nagpapakita na ang patayan ay dahil sa pag-uutos ni Tatay Digong at ang ginamit niya ay yung mga data galing sa Third World Center ng University of the Philippines na napapakita na mas maraming biktima ng patayan ngayon sa panahon ni Marcos Jr. At ang tanong nga niya, bakit kaya hindi nagrereklamo mga abogado ng biktima dito sa mga namamatay at kinunclude nga niya bago man ng halian, ang tanong ay bakit dahil ba ito ay si Tatay Digong ngayon ay nakakulong na. So kasama po natin si Professor Ana Malindugoy. Professor Ana Malindugoy, napaka-importante na yung mga obserbasyon dahil ito ay hindi lang naman legal na proseso, ito po ay isang political na proseso rin. Kaya kung sana ikaw ay makapasok na dahil sinasabi niya hindi daw okay ang kanyang StreamYard, no? Sayang naman. Pero kung kaya mong pumasok, ayan, the floor is yours.
Oh, natag dito? Naririnig ako?
Yes, naririnig Professor Ana.
Okay.
So far?
Sa akin naman, parang maganda naman ang presentation ng defense ni Attorney Kaufman at napo-point out naman niya yung mga kailangan na i-debunk na present ng prosecution ng the last 2 days na the first and the second day kasi nagkaroon ng break kahapon. So I think happy ako to a certain extent at saka ang maganda lang doon na talaga na tumatak sa akin sa presentation ni Attorney Kaufman is first and foremost yung issue na ang word na to neutralize is not necessarily or does not necessarily mean na to kill, which is actually from a Filipino perspective, given the context that we have and given na nasubaybayan naman natin ang buong presidency ni Pangulong Duterte at tayo na may mga Pilipino nasa bansa natin, alam naman natin sa konteksto ng kanyang mga speeches na when you talk about na the word neutralize na na-emphasize ni Kaufman is actually, ang naririnig ko pa nga kay Pangulong Duterte noon is to subdue. And subdue doesn't necessarily mean to kill. So yun yung isa sa mga nagustuhan ko dun sa defense ni Attorney Kaufman na I think is a very good, is a strong defense. Kasi kung titignan mo sa prosecution nung first and second day, in-emphasize nila yung tinatawag mong neutralization or to neutralize na ang kanilang sinasabi is to kill na, which is actually doon din ako nag-iisip na bakit ganun ang kanilang definition. Ang another point that I really like also in the defense ni yung presentation ng defense team ni Pangulong Duterte is yung paglalahad na ang Supreme Court sa highest judicial court natin, which is the Supreme Court, na ipahayag na yung mga policies yung operations, yung policy, national policy in combating drugs or during the drug war, in-uphold naman yan at hindi nagkaroon ng contradiction or hindi ni-rule ng Supreme Court na it's unconstitutional. So that is a very good, I think that was also one of the strongest point na sinabi ng defense. At saka, yung sinasabi nga niya, hindi ma-establish yung direct connection. Kasi sa Article 7 of the Rome Statutes, the most important is kumbaga, kung may systematic na killing, yun isa, hindi na-prove. On the other one is the word systematize. Hindi rin naman kasi, hindi makonect kasi ng prosecution kung paano naging systematize siya. At kung mayroon nga bang direct na sinabi si Pangulong Duterte nung panahon niya na, patayin nyo yan. Wala naman talagang ganon. At saka, ang lahat, yung mga sinasabi din na pinalabas ng prosecution na to certain extent, na debunk din naman ni Attorney Kaufman, is yung mga video na pinakita. Na actually, these are political statements. These are rhetorics. But how you gonna quantify the rhetorics into actual killing, which was not even, and it was not established by the prosecution na solidly na defend ni Attorney Kaufman. So I think the defense is doing a good job at this time. Pero ngayon nasa break sila, so we have to kumbaga monitor kung paano pa i-debunk ng defense ang mga presentation ng prosecution, which for me, to be very honest, Attorney Harry, ay rhetorical, very political, at saka appeal to emotion ang nakita ko nung second day ng confirmation at even the first day dun sa nakafocus sila sa DDS. So from my impression, honestly and objectively, mahirap ma-establish ng prosecution yung elements, contextual element ng Article 7. Ikaw mas may explain mo rin yan kasi you are in this field, international lawyer ka, at marami kang experience when it comes to these things and adjudication of of cases. Sa akin kasi ang background ko is I actually studied international law sa Utrecht University because I was working on human rights issue and humanitarian issues when I was based abroad. So I was trained in Australia and even in the Netherlands on these matters, and looking at, especially when you talk about crimes against humanity, because that's very much connected to human rights and humanitarian issues. So to a certain extent, naiintindihan ko ang mga bagay-bagay na to. Pero I think you're more experienced on these matters kasi yan talaga ay field mo. Pero sa akin talaga, Attorney Harry, ang tingin ko, hopefully, God willing, malakas naman ang defense. At sa assessment ko lang, based sa presentation ng prosecution, especially the second day, nag-agree tayo dito, nag-usap tayo, na mahina. Pero at the end of the day kasi, ang mag-decide niyan is yung 3 judges ng ICC. Ang ano lang naman natin dito is to make some commentary as objective as we can.
Alam mo, ang nakakatawa nga ay bakit nga nasampa pa itong kasong ito. No? Nagulat talaga ako dahil nung una, lahat confidential. No? Hindi ko naman nalaman ang naging dahilan nila doon sa operation na Tokhang at saka operation Double Barrel na in-issue ng PNP. Kung yun ang dahilan, ay malinaw na malinaw ni Supreme Court decision na hindi siya illegal. No? Dapat hindi na nasampa tong kasong to, hindi na kinulong si Tatay Digong, pero makikita mo talaga na nagkaroon ng sabwatan sa mga kalaban ni Tatay Digong, sa mga investigador ng ICC na pagpilitan itong kasong to nang mawala lang si Tatay Digong. Kasama tayo ngayon ni Edwin Hamora. No? Edwin, maraming salamat sa iyong pagsapi, Edwin. Ngayon, Edwin, pag-usapan natin dahil nahimay-himay na namin so far yung sinabi ni Kaufman. No? Pag-usapan naman natin ngayon yung sinabi ng 18 na mga sundalong mga Marines at kung paano makakaapekto to dito sa pagdinig ng ICC. Edwin, join us please. Edwin, narinig mo ba kami? Can you join us? Edwin, narinig mo kami? Edwin, ikaw mag-unmute, hindi ako. Please unmute.
Okay naman. Ayan.
Pag-usapan natin yung sinabi ng 80 na mga Marines insofar as the ICC is concerned. At bilang isang observer, sa tingin mo ba makakaapekto to dito sa ongoing trial ni Tatay Digong? Siguro para dun sa hindi nakakaalam, and please join in Professor Ana, dahil alam ko marami ka rin sinulat tungkol dito. Ano yung mga naging ng mga Marino at ano yung tungkol sa ICC at paano makakaapekto itong mga aligasyon ng mga Marino sa nagaganap ngayon na paglilitis si Tatay Digong. Go ahead, Edwin, and please join in the conversation, Prof. Ana.
Actually, attorney, before I comment on the 18 Marines, kasi natawa ako doon sa causal link na sinasabi ni Attorney Kaufman when he started talking about let's analyze this using logic. I'm not sure kung napansin mo yun kasi sabi niya there is no causal link between Duterte and the identified murders. Nireframe niya yun in a way na would the killings have been avoided kung nag-withdraw si President Duterte. Tapos ang answer niya is no, the killings have continued. Kasi hindi ko lang narinig masyado kung ilan yung mga murders na nangyayari ngayon under Marcos regime.
Nagkakaroon.
Kasi sabi niya, alam mo, kailangan niya, dapat yung prosecution cannot prove causation, hindi ma-prove ng prosecution yung indispensability and control. Pwedeng paki-elaborate mo yung part na yon, kasi hindi na ito kumbaga napasali na dito yung logic.
Okay, ang sabi kasi ng prosecution, yung plano na ipatupad ang tukhang at yung nasa loob ng plano na may mga high-value targets ay utol patayin ang mga high-value targets, as in fact, yung mga ilang high-value target gaya ni Espinosa at ni Parawinog ay napatay, no? So ang sabi naman ni Kaufman, unang-una, yung sistema na sinasabi nilang illegal ay kinilalang legal ng Korte Suprema, so hindi po pwedeng maging illegal yon. Pangalawa, walang pruweba na yung mga patayan ay dahil sa partisipasyon ni Tatay Digong. At ang katunayan na linabas niya ay mas dumami pa nga ang biktima ng extralegal killings matapos ang termino ni Tatay Digong. Hindi tumigil ang killings nang nawala sa posisyon si Tatay Digong at mas malala pa ngayon ang record ng Bongbong Marcos Jr.
Yeah.
Yun yung magandang nila Edwin at saka Attorney Harry. Isa sa yung last part na yon ni Kaufman before nagkaroon ng break for at magre-resume sila afternoon in the European time frame or time zone. Yun ang isa sa mga naipakita din ni Kaufman na sinasabi nga niya kung ang pag-uusapan lang natin is death toll at the same time death rates ba. Tingnan nyo, in 2 years time ni Marcos Jr., mas marami pa kaysa sa 6 years na time ni Pangulong Duterte, which is a very good comparison. Kasi ang prosecution, ang pinapakita niya, parang ang buong Pilipinas, wala nang nangyari during the time of Duterte kung the killings ng killing, which is not really true. Kasi,
Exactly.
yeah, di ba? I mean, as Filipinos, we know that na nasa Manila tayo, alam natin na during that time, I mean, isa pa sa sa prosecution is nung first and second day is yung sinasabi nila na parang ang killing is like purposely. Hindi nila naiintindihan na in the context of buy-bust operation or police operation na curbing illegal drugs, talagang may kay casualty. Hindi naman ibig sabihin na gusto mong magkaroon ng casualty when you talk about deaths. It just so happen sometimes hindi yan maiiwasan. Kahit saang bansa ka pumunta, especially kapag ang drug problem is talamak, at makikita mo yan sa Latin Americans, like for example Mexico right now. I've read the news na sa Mexico lately, just to give an information sa ating mga kababayan, sa Mexico ang pinaka-top na leader ng cartel ay namatay dahil sa state operation, ibig sabihin government operation, at nagkaroon ng kwentro, maraming namamatay, maraming casualty doon sa bakbakan ng cartel, drug cartel, as against sa state